It's every probation officer's worst nightmare. What was supposed to be a routine check-in ends in a cold-blooded murder.
This is one of the most egregious examples of how violence can occur.
A Maryland parole officer went to check on a registered sex offender, only to never return to work. His lifeless body was later discovered inside the apartment of the very offender he was assigned to check in on.
There always is that risk that no matter what they're doing, no matter how careful they are, Officer Martinez had a bulletproof vest. There's always that risk of violence.
Agent Davis Martinez was on a routine resident check-in on May 31st for a convicted sex offender. But when he didn't report back to the office, officers with the Montgomery County Department of Police were dispatched to the ex-con's home. That ex-con was ID'd as 54-year-old convicted sex offender Emanuel Edward Sewell. And what investigators would discover in Sewell's apartment would turn out to be a gruesome scene. When officers went to the apartment, they reportedly found the home secured with blinds drawn. Officers tried to establish communication with Martinez and Sewell, but they forced into the apartment and made a tragic discovery. Agent Davis Martinez was found wrapped in multiple plastic bags underneath a bed in the apartment. According to reports, officers noted Martinez's body appeared to be in the fetal position, and officers observed a bloody towel near the front door.
One of the worst nightmares of a probation officer is to visit the home of someone who is on supervised release.
While many questions surrounding the murder currently remain a mystery, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Gene Rossi explains Sewell's supervised release status might have put Agent Martinez's life at greater risk.
And supervised release is a little different than pretrial bond. When you have pretrial bond and there's a visitation to the home, it's highly likely the defendant who's awaiting trial is not going to do anything that is violent or anything that could risk getting their bond revoked. But supervised release means you served your sentence, and now for several years, the state or the federal government has a right to monitor you. You have to do monthly reports. You have to subject yourself to home visits, sometimes unannounced. I don't know if this case involves an unannounced or a home visit with very few minutes to prepare. It seems to me, Elizabeth, that when the probation officer, Mr. Martinez, visited the home of the defendant, Mr. Sewell, that it was either unannounced or he did not give Mr. Sewell much notice. Because by circumstantial evidence, reading the tea leaves here, it sounds like Mr. Sewell saw something. Well, Mr. Martinez saw something in Mr. Sewell's home that was very bad. And that would have resulted in Mr. Sewell getting more jail time. Because if you violate supervised release, you get more jail time. And so there must have been something that Officer Martinez saw that caused Mr. Sewell to allegedly take Mr. Martinez's life.
And more horrific details. I just want to take a brief pause from this really devastating and heartbreaking story. I don't know about you, but I'm always curious about who I'm surrounding myself with. But that's where our sponsor of the story, truthfinder.com, comes in with a solution. Truthfinder is one of the largest public record search services, not just across the U.S., but the world. And their goal is super simple: to help people like you and me learn the truth about the people in our very lives. So here's how it works. You go on their website, truthfinder.com, and say, for instance, you have a new friend or a new date or a new neighbor, and you want to know more. You can type in their name, and within minutes, you get access to reports that includes info like numbers, addresses, associates, but also any previous arrests and criminal convictions. I mean, imagine not having this information at your fingertips. You meet someone in real life, not realizing all the skeletons they may have in their closet. Also, if you type in an address, it tells you if there are any registered sex offenders that may live in the area. So right now, Law and Crime viewers can get 50% off confidential background reports at truthfinder.com/LCnews and access information about almost anyone. Again, that's truthfinder.com/LCnews for 50% off your first month. According to the Washington Post, Martinez conducted the routine visit alone and was attacked even as he wore a bulletproof vest. Agent Martinez had been stabbed multiple times with wounds on his head, face, brain, and a 6-inch slash to his neck. According to police, a neighbor told investigators she heard loud knocking on Sewell's door around 9 a.m. that morning. She said hours later, around 2 in the afternoon, she claims to have witnessed Sewell walking toward the dumpster before returning to his apartment. Shortly after, Sewell was allegedly spotted leaving his apartment with 2 clear trash bags of clothes, then drove away. Sewell was captured a day later across state lines in West Virginia. He was charged with second-degree murder and is being held without bail.
Well, I think they undercharge this, but they don't have all the evidence yet. And they could either supersede the indictment, or when they indict Mr. Sewell, he probably has been subject to a complaint. When they actually indict him, they may raise it a notch and add first-degree murder. This kind of seems like a little bit of premeditation. So that's classic first-degree murder. Or it's just basic intent, which also would be first degree. Second degree is a little bit lower. I'm heartened that there's no mention of manslaughter, because that would really give him a pass, Mr. Sewell, allegedly who took his life. If there are multiple stabbings, if it's a gruesome murder of a probation officer, who's essentially a police officer, an officer of the court, that could cause the prosecutors to raise it to first-degree murder.
And here's what else we know about Emanuel Sewell. According to the Washington Post, the sex offender had been on supervised release since 2021, after he served decades in prison for a '96 rape of a physicist. In 1996, Sewell climbed through the man's ground-level kitchen window. With a knife in hand, he confronted the physicist in his bed, bound his hands and feet, then sexually assaulted him. After the assault, Sewell stole the victim's ATM card, video cassette recorder, and car. Fast forward to 2024, Sewell's acts of violence seemingly haven't changed. Agent Davis Martinez was reportedly Sewell's parole officer for a while, and the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services said Sewell had not posed a prior risk. However, according to a report by WMAR in Baltimore, that wasn't the same case from previous agents who raised red flags about Sewell and his behavior. So Martinez stepped up, taking on the task of being Sewell's parole officer, which tragically cost him his life.
Well, my view is this. After he served a long time for the initial charge and he got out, and if there were red flags and loud gongs that he's escalating his behavior, not just with Officer Martinez, but with other probation officers, I have a couple of questions. Why didn't they not report it to the sentencing judge? Number one. If they did, why did the sentencing judge not revoke his supervised release and sentence to him to more time? We don't know the answers to that. I don't have the docket sheet for his case. But if you had red flags and loud gongs that Mr. Sewell is escalating his contact with Officer Martinez and other probation officers, that's really bad, given his underlying crime was violence.
When news spread of his gruesome death, Martinez's murder sent shockwaves across the state of Maryland. Union leaders with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees rallied together to demand better protection for their agents.
Well, they should. And the probation office and the court, because probation is an arm of the court, they need to revisit the protocols. And if you have someone like Mr. Sewell who allegedly was escalating, you may in the future require mandatory tag team where Mr. Officer Martinez brings somebody else along so that there is not that risk of violence. The more I think about this, it appears that Mr. Sewell had something to hide and that Mr. Martinez either saw it or had conversations with Mr. Sewell and raised questions. Because if Mr. Sewell had nothing in his home to raise any concerns, there's no motivation for Mr. Sewell to allegedly kill Mr. Martinez, take his life in such a violent and gruesome manner.
In light of Agent Martinez's gruesome death, the State Department of Parole and Probation announced a management shakeup at the agency. And they have since suspended at-home visits by their agents while an investigation remains ongoing. Martinez's murder has left a huge hole in the heart of the department as they continue to mourn the loss of one of their own. The department where he worked posted a tribute on their social media page to honor his life.
I'm Agent Davis Martinez.
Agent Martinez, how long have you been with the department?
I've been here since August 2018, so I'll say 3 years already.
Just ask anyone who knew him, and they'll tell you right away, Agent Davis Martinez was a remarkable person who touched the lives of many and left an indelible mark on the community.
Very family-oriented, very loving.
So much more than a parole and probation agent, he was a guiding light for those who served and a pillar of strength for his colleagues.
Loving, kind, respectful, courteous, devoted to his job, extremely diligent, a team player, funny, shy. There isn't one word only to describe him.
From the start, Davis demonstrated an unwavering commitment to his role. Almost 6 years ago, he joined Parole and Probation and quickly became known for his dedication and compassion.
Agent Martinez was such a gentle person. A very compassionate person, but very gentle. He took this job very seriously, and I do mean seriously.
His co-workers at the Silver Spring office where he worked will sorely miss his presence. His sensitivity and willingness to help whenever needed made him a beloved figure among his peers.
Martinez was a beautiful soul. He was the glue here and the glue to his family. There's nothing he wouldn't do for any one of us.
Martinez's former academy instructor remembered him as a great agent from the very beginning. His contributions were invaluable, and his loss leaves a void that will be deeply felt by all.
He was a good person, somebody who wanted to be here, who wanted to change lives, and we lost somebody who was really making an impact in the community.
Davis Martinez was more than an agent. He was an unsung hero, a friend, a confidant, and a true example of what it means to serve with heart. His dedication, compassion, and spirit will continue to inspire us all.
Just working with some great people. A lot of the people that I work with, like, just no issues at all with anyone. Like, we always, like, me and everyone else always get along with each other, and like, overall, like, I do kind of see them almost like a second family.
In a post on GoFundMe by Agent Martinez's brother, who wrote a heartbreaking tribute, which says in part, "Our hearts ache with the unbearable loss we feel every day." Davis was not just a dedicated agent, but also the sole provider for his 66-year-old mother and 29-year-old autistic brother. The weight of this responsibility now falls heavily on our family's shoulders. Let us honor the memory of Agent Davis G. Martinez, a selfless man who gave everything to serve others. While Martinez's family, friends, and colleagues mourn the devastating loss of Agent Martinez, Rossi explains justice should prevail as the state has seemingly a strong case against Sewell.
From what I see right now, I think this is a very strong case for the prosecution. Because when they prosecute Mr. Sewell, unless he pleads guilty, when they prosecute Mr. Sewell, it will come out in front of the jury that he had served the sentence and got out, and then he was on what they call supervised release. Those facts alone are already telling the jury that this guy's a violent person. So it's not hard for a jury to conclude that this violent person committed at least second-degree murder, possibly first-degree murder.
But as for a good defense for the convicted sex offender, that might be more difficult.
You know, I've been a defense attorney for 7 years. This one will be very hard. And I say this all the time. Being a defense attorney in a criminal case, you're dealt cards, 5 cards. You can't go back to the dealer and say, hey, I don't like 3 of my cards. Can you give me 3 replacements? You can't do that. So the cards that the defense attorney in this case would have are not good.
As Martinez's loved ones seek justice, Rossi says the overall case is tragic, especially as Agent Martinez did everything right.
Law enforcement, probation officers, They do great work. They do really great work. They don't get paid enough. Their salaries probably should be doubled. But there always is that risk that no matter what they're doing, no matter how careful they are, Officer Martinez had a bulletproof vest, there's always that risk of violence. And in this case, this is one of the most egregious examples of how violence can occur, even for probation officers who are working on supervised release cases. And this was a gruesome alleged murder. And it goes back to, I think Officer Martinez either surprised Mr. Sewell or saw something at the home when he got there, because I'm trying to think of that triggering event that allegedly caused Mr. Sewell to violently kill Officer Martinez, which is incredibly sad.
According to the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, Agent Davis Martinez will be laid to rest on Saturday, June 22nd. Meanwhile, online court records show Emanuel Sewell is still behind bars and is being held on no bond. His next court date is scheduled for July 5th for a preliminary hearing. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.